All right. We are here with Elisandro. What's going on, man? How are you holding up? How's everything going for you and your family?
Oh, hi, Walter. Well, first of all, very nice to meet you. I'm excited about this. I was talking to John Rexer
Yeah.
about it, and I got the chance to listen to a couple of the podcasts, and it sounds amazing. It sounds great that what you're doing there, and yeah, uh, and well, hi, and yeah, it's just there's no sense of normalcy anywhere. I was in New York when everything just went down there. I was working precisely at Bowery and Vine on Bowery.
Yeah.
uh, it seems so far that this would never uh, come on this side. And I had a conversation with an old gentleman in New York, and the one thing he said in Faro, Elisandro, this comes to New York, we're doomed, because as soon as that thing comes into the subway, the subway is going to make sure that it's everywhere. And just that's what happened. So, and now in Oaxaca, um, they're being on lockdown since March as well, but the curve is not as high, but it's really long now that it's just, you don't even know what's next. The numbers are definitely really low compared to what I got to experience and see in New York. But
Yeah.
yeah, I never would imagine to experience a pandemic.
A total shutdown of everything.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you think you only see it on history books or
Movies. Yeah.
or movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so listen, man, let's get into, so for anybody who doesn't know who you are and people that are listening for the first time, why don't you kind of walk us through a little bit of, currently, like, who you are and currently what you do, and then we'll kind of backtrack a little bit and get into like how things started and stuff. So what are you up to these days?
Well, first of all, my name is Elisandro Gonzalez Molina. I'm from Oaxaca, Mexico, from the mountains of Oaxaca. Right now, I'm a partner with my cousin in with the mezcal Tosba brand. Well, we have another partner too, Matthew Powell, who is from Washington. But yeah, I'm the kind of like the guy that make things happen with Tosba. I mean, I do everything in the front end, whereas my cousin, he's the one that does all the magic with the distillation, with the juice creating, making mezcal. And we kind of circle back ourselves into everything. Like right now, I'm in the middle of this, trying to take advantage of the season, which is rainy season here in Oaxaca.
Mm.
And it's planting season. So throughout the year, we usually grow a lot of agave, like from seeds. So those guys sprout, and we're watering them and making sure that they grow. And now, since you get to remove them from wherever they are, cut the roots, and it's just that's what you do, because we don't really want to cut agave that's full of water for the yield. So we kind of shift a little the activity that from instead of distilling and harvesting and distilling, we jump into planting and taking advantage of the water, the rain.
How many are you planting a year?
It varies. This, for instance, the very first year, which it's how we started by 2,000 plants, and then the largest amount that we planted in a year, I think it's been 20,000 plants. And this year, and like, well, this is a crazy, wonderful year, because for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been really hitting hard on the so-called wild agaves, like not necessarily espadín, but other types that this year we put, so far we've been putting like 9,000, a mix of everything. Like the one that I'm excited about, it's a cenizo. My buddy from Durango brought some seeds, and we put them on the nursery, and now they're like about 20 centimeters tall. So now we are gonna have a bunch of cenizos, and not only cenizos, but we do like Tobalas, Karwinskis, everything, as as we can, and this is just for us to have raw material in the future, which is kind of the stage where we are, because we started with espadín. That's kind of like what we started planting from the very beginning. But for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been just experimenting a bunch of stuff, and there's more to come that we're gonna be doing. So yeah.
So how many I guess you can call them SKUs do you make currently?
The one that we started and we have, it's for sure, it's espadín.
Yep.
The natural way for us to do the next thing to do was pechuga based with the espadín base. And then the next natural thing for us to start making was tobalá. And then from there, we started buying agave from the valley, Tepestate. And then for the, I don't know, 6-7 years, we started recovering a native plant from the region that people were not really paying attention to it. Like, they didn't care, because for people in the area was like too small that they consider basically bushes, like agave, really tiny. But something that Edgar, my cousin, was doing was clearing, like making sure that they have enough sun. So then you realize these guys are growing really big. See that? And so now that's a native from there, from the region where we are. And so that will be the fifth one, which is Warash, and that's a native plant from the region. So
wow.
And we experiment with, for instance, we've made arroqueños, but that one we didn't release it. It's really, really delicious, and people that come to the palenque, they get to try these little things that we have. We're always experimenting with.
Nice, man. So you're up and running, right? You're selling in the United States currently, or you were before COVID, maybe.
Oh, we are actually.
So let's take it back a little bit, man. How did so you sent me a couple of things via email. I saw that one video, which is super cool, man. I don't know who made that video with you guys harvesting and putting the piñas in the the oven, and yeah, it was super cool. Like, so I guess let's back up. Like, when was the plan to say, hey, I want to make mezcal? How did that all come to fruition? Because your town, and maybe you could tell me about your town as well, seems to hold 500, 1,000 people. Am I wrong? Or
yeah, that's about right.
According to the video I saw, it seems like most of the men 20 to 45 or 50 are working in the United States. So so kind of, if you can tell me a little bit about the journey of what you were doing, where you were working, and then saying, okay, I'm in the United States working, I'm going to go back to my small town and start making mezcal. So maybe you could help me kind of understand it a little bit. Like I said, I saw bits and pieces from the video, so I'd love to hear just from you about the whole journey from start to where you guys are now.
Yeah, well, it's funny. The inspiration came through a movie, and this is my cousin, where he, right after, I think, where he was finishing his undergrad on computer science, he was here in Oaxaca. A brother of his, a cousin of mine as well, he had just came back from the US, and with a bunch of movies that were in his house, and somehow he grabbed a movie, which, by the way, was the A Walk in the Clouds with Keanu Reeves in Napa Valley. And it's a love story and blah, blah, blah. But it's in the vineyard, like, living in the countryside, just making booze and just having nice meals. That kind of was the inspiration. I want to live like that, Edgar was realizing. And yes, we don't have grapes here in Oaxaca, but we do have agave, and we can make booze, we can make things around that. And that kind of was just like the idea. That would be cool too, which, by the way, now he lives like that. He's in the countryside. He just lives off of the land, like he tries to plant as much as he can for food wise, so he lives it's in the forest. So yeah, the life there with the horses, with the just being wild out, like no nearby city, and just that life.
Nice.
And that's kind of where everything started. And by this,
That seems more and more awesome these days. Get the hell out of the cities.
yeah, I guess it was more of a visionary, and that's happening right now. Because yeah, precisely, it's really we're really lucky to be able to unplug and keep doing what we're doing, and just unplug and just go in the mountains and just live with the sun as the sun rises and the sun sets, and
Amazing.
like you sleep early and you wake up early, that sort of cycle. But yeah, so he wasn't right after high school. By that time, right after high school, I had moved to the US, to Silicon Valley, to San Jose. And then he joined me there because he didn't like the pay in Oaxaca for computer science was super low, that he was like, I don't think it's gonna be worth for me. I think I could make more money if I go to the States. And yeah, we meet up in Silicon Valley again. We shared a room. We shared an apartment, with one-bedroom apartment, and there we are, like nothing in the apartment. We're just like scraping things to bring into the apartment.
Yep.
Each of a sleeping bag. Kind of like we were doing our own thing, but Edgar had already this idea. And that's when and by that time I was working in a French restaurant where Francois Gallet, he actually introduced me to the wine culture with cuisine. So I was really influenced by that. I was learning a lot of like the pairing, like the types of grapes and all that culture of grapes. And then Edgar tells me, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? And I'm like, I'm still really young at that time, right after high school, but I always had grown in the mountains of Oaxaca because my parents are teachers, and I had this social aspect of things like, okay, this thing, why everyone is migrating? Why is it? And why are the roads all messed up? And later on, like, yeah, somebody's taking that money, and like that's kind of the way things happen in Latin America, where government just takes the money and the roads, or at least the infrastructure, it's not there to get things done. But anyway, so kind of it be back in my head. So
Yeah.
they need to create something, to do something, to generate an economy, an industry, or a business, So that's kind of where we met. He wanted to do this, and this we're talking about an early 2000.
And how old are you? How old are you at this time?
40 right now.
Well, how old were you when you were having this conversation?
Yeah. That was I was like fairly 20 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that happened, and then the first thing that we did was to buy our first batch of agave espadins, and of course we didn't know, I didn't picture what exactly this meant. And I was expecting a truck being brought full of agaves. And then the guy that delivered the first batch of espadines was, it's a bucket. It's a small bucket. There's 2,000 plants. And of course, they're really tiny. I'm like, what? Oh, okay. And then, yeah. Well, that was the first encounter. And then the first year we planted 2,000 plants. And then next year was 4,000 plants, the next year was 10,000 plants, and so on. At this time, we were just planting. We didn't know how to make mezcal and the one that was helping and was taking care of the fields was Edgar's dad, Tío Felipe. He was the one that was taking care of the land. But then there was so many plants that he's older, and he's like, you guys need to come back because this is
it's too much.
So big. Yeah, you need to like maintain them, because the bushes grow, like weeds grow, like it just becomes wild again. But so then we came back. Edgar goes back to the mountains. We hired a fellow mezcalero from another village to teach us how to make mezcal. So the first, remember, this is in the mountains of Oaxaca. There was not a road for us to get there to the picture that you got to see on the video.
Yeah.
That we had to build. We had to bulldoze our way to make that road.
Oh wow.
There was not like that. That area didn't exist. It was
so
just,
you made your own road.
yeah, we made our own road and we flattened the area to build the structure where the palenque is.
Jeez.
Everything. So yeah, and that of course takes money, and all this is like with the savings that we were putting together while working in San Jose, in Silicon Valley, with roofing. Edgar used to work as a roofer, as a Subway sandwich maker.
And you were working at the restaurants.
I was more on the front of the house. Eventually, I became a tender, and that was kind of the road. I came back to Mexico, but I went back to school to finish this degree in international business. So that it was really super fast. I did it in 2.5 years. While I was also adjusting my immigration status to come back as a permanent resident. And Edgar was learning this, and I was we always had this conversation, like what needs to be done, and the packaging, the labeling. Of course, I needed to go back to the US to save some more money to finally develop the labels, to go through the certification process. Like, you need to register before the Mexican IRS, to get your accounting going, and all the requirements that goes through the certification console in Oaxaca. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that took us for like 4 or 5 years, but at the same time, we're like back and forth testing, like learning how to make mezcal. At this time, Edgar was just testing. Like, for instance, the very first batches that we wanted to find out what the proof will be what the ABV would be on the bottle, and we would bring friends over and we would line up like 35 ABV, 40% ABV, 42, 44. So, and we will have people say, hey, let's taste some mezcal, and with different proofs. And eventually we started with 42 because that's kind of what people liked. And later on, we changed it because Edgar found that it was too light for him, so that it gets a little richer above 45. And that's kind of where we landed. And now what we do is almost still strength. So that was that part to land in the ABV. And of course, this is with espadín first. That was like what we had, raw material to make mezcal. And this is one of the things where we find it also to be very lucky because if you come from generations of mezcal making families where you have this freedom, because if your father or your grandfather used to make it in a certain way, you can't really change it that much. Whereas in our case, how about now I can change this, I can experiment with this, and you're like free to do anything. And at the end, you're gonna mess up 500 liters of mezcal, but but that was the process in that sense. And so that eventually, so then we had the mezcal espadín made, and then the natural step for us was to learn how to make pechuga, which is espadín based with the turkey and the fruits in it. For this, I was researching, I was looking, I was asking questions, finding out how do they make it. And the way, and I was in California, and I was in a phone call with them in Oaxaca, where I told them, hey, we can make pechuga, and this is how they make it. And I gave him some instructions, and he did it completely different because he understood it completely differently. But the way he did it, it was just amazing. And later when we were talking about it, like, dude, that was not like what I told you, but I did it. This is how it was that's good, and this is how we're gonna make it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was, and then the next thing to do was to experiment, to explore like Tobala. So that's what happened, and uh, it took us 14 years to get to that first batch of espadín with pechuga, to labels, with the certification, with everything, to go to the US, um, and yeah, that was like the first batch of mezcal that we made
Jeez.
for export. Yeah,
So what was the time frame from like when you and Edgar were like, "Hey, you want to make mezcal," to the time you had your first bottle? Like when you were like, "Okay, this is a real thing." Like how many years?
the I think it would took us 12 years actually to that first bottle, like that
God.
first bottle. And then we had to go through like a couple of more years to kind of polish like what we were doing with the image that we wanted to have.
Yeah.
Because we had a previous label, which I just found a few bottles of it recently that yeah, I'm gonna keep those.
You should.
Yeah, there it was a different bottle. It was a squared bottle that we had moved to the current image that we have. And by the way, this is a collaboration with some classmates that I found in college, and just like, hey, I'm developing this. Oh, I have a friend who specializes on packaging for food, and let's do it. It
So
was
12 years from the time you're like, "Hey, let's make mezcal," to
Mhm.
you and him working restaurants, Subway sandwiches, taking all your money, putting it back into the town, growing, learning until you get your first bottle, and then another couple years before you're like, "Okay, here's a company."
Yeah.
And then, well, how? And then when? Then how many years until you sold to America?
That was like the 14 years exactly. Like
Jeez.
15 years, like the where I remember going to. It was funny when NPR came to with us, and
Yep.
the Marianne McCune, the reporter. We actually, that was my she went with me to the warehouse where the mezcal had landed in California, and somewhere around Napa, where there's a bunch of warehouses for wine, for booze. And we went there to pick up a couple of boxes for samples for me to use and go and showcase to bars. And then we went down to San Francisco, and precisely that there is a recording. There is a where I go at the Alembic in, I think it's in Ashbury, or where I did. Hey guys, you guys wanna try some mezcal? I have some mezcal, and the guys loved it, and it was, and that's kind of like it was funny because it was really crazy because there was somebody there recording,
Yeah.
and to see that first pitch of mezcal. And here I am, like I always consider myself really shy to talk in public, to like, and here, like, even to like get like ask girls out, like that sort of, always like that awkwardness. I always had it, but here I am. Hey, you guys want to try some mezcal? Then it eventually became. I mean, you get used to it, and then
Yeah.
always having that little bottle of mezcal or bottle of mezcal always to try to put it together. And we're talking about we're a little before where when this right now it's more. It's not. I wouldn't say it's mainstream, but it was less known.
Yeah.
2014, it was, we were really like knocking doors, hey, like, have you tried mezcal, and just convincing everyone, because
Mm-hmm.
that transition for many people from tequila, or for others, get encouraged to try that first uh mezcal was
Yeah.
crazy. I remember also working at the bar, and at that time I didn't have a actual brand, but I was selling bottles of Del Maguey, bottles of Ilegal,
Mm.
telling people, hey, have you guys heard of mezcal? And I was just doing that. I remember the one mezcal that I was really fan of, was the Chichicapa from Del
Mm.
the my pride. This is from Oaxaca, and this is how it's made,
That's a good one.
and then just like, and people like out of 10, 7 will be happy, and then you will be like, yeah, it was fun those days to be promoting and to be like pitching mezcal, and eventually I got to know the guys from Mezcalistas. Also, they were starting with the whole promotion of mezcal. Eventually, they created Mexico in a bottle. We did a couple events, and then this thing is just been growing crazy and getting more popular, or more people getting to know and
Yeah.
appreciate what actually happens behind a bottle. Just like I was telling you, it's been a journey, really fun.
Well, listen, man, that's like, I mean, talk about patience. I mean, you could have easily, you know, a lot of people, and you probably know it now. I mean, young people these days, they see the final result. They're like, oh, wow, this person has a liquor brand, and this person's a entrepreneur, this person's an owner, but they don't realize it took 14 years just to get the bottle. I mean, just to get it there, not even, that's when, and then the work begins. Then you got to sell it.
Yeah.
You got to take it. Like you said, pinch it. You got to show it around, and you got to, tell people about your product, and you got to start promoting it and marketing and sales and da. So it was 14 years before you even kind of started the journey. So I mean, kudos to you, man, for having that patience. Cause like I said, I think a lot of people would have given up when they realized there was no road to harvest.
yeah. That was, but then I mean, at the same, being aligned to this, Edgar once, well, at the beginning, I was telling Edgar, what if we put people together, like, people from other villages and work together? And because our parents were teachers, you're like, you've seen your dad, you've seen my dad, how like they work their lives off, and it's hard to put people together. So how about we start doing it ourselves? And eventually, I didn't understand it at that time, but now that we people seeing what we've been doing for the last 14, 20 years, actually they thought that we were crazy because of like, who wants from this and blah, blah, and you guys are crazy, and yeah. And now that people like, they see the product and they see it, that it's going places. The the really cool thing for me is to see now that for the last 5 years, people have been asking us for seeds for little plants for them to like, and we've been giving them away. So you can see plots now of agaves from other regions, from other people from the village. So now it's like this year precisely, there were like 10 people that just came and asked for plants. So now they have their fields, and there are fields already that are not ours, but we are working in collaboration. So that idea, that dream of having a sort of industry, sort of system there, about having people getting like using their land and just planting, and eventually to use and have that funnel to put the product out. I think and very soon we will see it in full motion.
Yeah. So tell me about, tell me a little bit about like your, kind of like your upbringing with your parents. You mentioned they were teachers. Like I said, I watched, the video you had sent me, and talking about your town, and, how it maybe would in the past would have 2,000 people, but now it's half that capacity because half the people are working in the United States. So what was it like growing up in that area? And tell me about your parents a little bit, and where did you get you seem to be very entrepreneurial. You seem to be super smart. And you seem to have a drive that not many people have. Like I said, most people would just be like, well, shit, I can't even get up this hill, so we're done. But you seem like a person that's just like, well, I'm not going to stop ever. So watch. And, so I'm curious to see, because I don't meet many people like that, but when you do meet people, they just have this drive. And as you mentioned, I've done some stuff and some entrepreneurial stuff, and people tend to just think you're a little weird. They think you're crazy. They think what are you doing this for? Why don't you just go back to the restaurant, and you were making good money there? You could support your family. You can get married, something inside our heads are like, I don't want to do that. I want to do things my way. I want to do it this way. So I'm trying to understand, where do you think you get that drive from? Is it your town? Is it your family? Or other people in your life?
Wow, I recently started doing meditation, and kind of it's one of those type of questions that you're kind of like look at yourself like what and like yeah like trying like yourself, but I guess it's a well growing up with my parents, they were rural teachers. So, and what that means in Mexico, and especially in those early 80s, it actually meant that there were not roads to get to those villages to for them to teach.
Mm.
And how do you get there? You walk, and you talk about mountains that will take you 8 hours to get there. Walk, and this is how old was I? Like 6, 7, 8 years old. Just doing those treks, and the way they would do it, like sometimes we would take horses, and then okay, you're fine with the horse because you're on a horse. But and then you would take breaks by the rivers, like where mom would bring food and she will set up a picnic and oh let's go into the water, but that was they were working, but for us it was kind of working, but also yeah you had to walk on these hills that are like
Yeah.
45 degrees, and just seeing that whole thing and of something could be done here, because that was the message that I was getting from my parents, and questioning how the structure of government, and here we're talking about corruption, which a lot of things sometimes people tend to not pay attention or not make a big deal of Mexico, but things in the government side of things, it's like they just take the money, and then the roads, the infrastructure, all these things never get there. One of the reasons that's why people were migrating suddenly from, I remember seeing the community in the early 80s, like a lot of people doing communal work, because that's how like the community works in the villages, in the Zapotec villages of Oaxaca. So those guys I got to meet because they left earlier than us. I got to see them in California, and it's we're people that are used to, and I feel like I don't work that hard enough, as much as hard as they work, because they're always at 4 or 5 in the morning. They're up and running, making the coffee, get it to, and by 5 you need to be leaving your house to go into the fields and work. And that's kind of like the mentality that you get from your grandpa, from your parents. A little, maybe I was a little more spoiled in that sense from my parents, but that's how they were raised. You know how like you need to, even if you party the night before, they will let
Yeah.
you go, but then the next day you have to be at 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
They're ready, and like whatever you have to do, you need to be like already out in the field. So that's the
Yeah.
mentality, the dreaming, and I think you could see it in just having that endurance for people working in the field, like in California, like picking up the harvest of food of things there. I think it's that's kind of like the the drive, the culture,
Mm.
but and then something that I would add to that. I mean, of course, being in Silicon Valley and hearing these stories of how people uh, created stuff from nothing and
Nothing. Yeah.
keep going. Maybe something that we a little different would be that our project is more labor intensive, whereas other projects like in technology will be more of more intellectual, more like you use your computer and you create a product, which is different. And also something that I didn't grow up for sure was the culture of finance, which I think is
Mm.
important. And I would love to get involved in more of that, because all these, what I'm telling you, it could have been made a little faster, a little quicker, a little more. Uh, if I had that investment in the very beginning.
Yep.
So we have everything, and we still like welcome investment if somebody's interested out there. But I mean, just this idea, this finance aspect of things, I think it could make a big difference on this on a project like this. So yeah, I think that's something that I didn't get from growing up, but the labor culture and the work uh, what's this, the work responsibility, the work uh, yeah, that the idea of hard working, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all present, and it's very present in the mountains of Oaxaca. And aside from that, there is also the structure, the social and government structure in the mountains. It's also different, because you have to, you as a citizen of the community, you have to give a servicio, uh, a communal service. So in our village, it's 6 services. For instance, you start as a police officer, but this is 1 year of your life where you give that service to the
You
community.
have to do it.
You have to, and that's how you, once you reach 18 years old, like right once you reach become an older person, uh, and then from there you become you're part of the committee of the education, the school. So you're in charge of the school, making sure everything is in place. You're helping the teachers
Huh.
clean. Then you move to have the water supply things, where the water sources are, and you need to provide a service. Eventually, you can be on the town hall, like you can be the mayor, you can be the president of the town. So eventually, and then once you pass that, then you're
There you
done.
go. So this is just in your community, or this is
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
yeah. Not all, well, it's throughout the region, but that's
It
kind of
is.
like the structure of the Zapotecs, and
Mm.
things are done. Yeah, and
That seems that seems super smart. I feel like we need more of that like here in America. I feel like everyone, I don't know, if everyone got to do everyone else's job for a little bit, they might understand it better. I think people are just letting go. I think here's the thing. Yes, in the United States, we're like, we go through all this school and then we're like, bye bye. And we're like just tossed into the world. And you see all these, I mean, people are going to college and going into the world with $250,000 in debt. But I think it'd be kind of cool to say, hey, take 6 months and be a police officer, see how that is. Good luck with that. Be a teacher, do some civil service stuff. And, I think, it's just like the restaurant industry. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. You
you want
start
to
as a
talk
bus.
about hospitality, we know how to talk to you. I mean, you just understand people. Like once you're a waiter, a busboy, whatever, a bartender, like your mentality of talking to people changes just because of what your job is. And I think everyone should do the hospitality industry for at least 6 months as well. But I don't know, it sounds a little rough, I guess, from the outside, but I think that's really cool that everyone has to kind of do a job that is within the community. So I know that I think that's a really cool perspective. And I think I wish that could be added to. And I guess that's maybe a message for young people is, when you're young, do different jobs.
Yeah,
Get a
definitely.
different perspective.
Yeah, and right now with what we're going through in the U.S. with the questioning things, the way things have been done for a while, I don't think it's been working for everyone. So then definitely there is that need, and I feel like there is a need to bring the issues to the table and
Yeah.
things, because yeah, it's very easy to come to conclusions like you are from the right, you're from the left, or you're a communist, or you are like evil capitalist. No, I think it's more than that. We have something to offer, and we have to make understand. And it's definitely it's something that as a company, as this project that we have, we try to implement all these sides of things because we face them. Like we try to mentor people. Like for instance, something that we have really going on most of the time is for when you're in school and you're about to graduate, you need to do an internship. Like we bring people, hey, you guys want to come here? And they ask us, hey, can we do it there? And we don't have anything, we don't have money to pay you guys, but you're more than welcome to suggest any idea that you want to put in practice. Like the guys that manage the nursery, they're the ones that are always making experiments, doing this, how to protect the plants with these tramps for the bugs, like the picudos or the potential disease that the plants could have. Very recently, an anthropologist went and stayed they're following Edgar for like a year and just taking notes and just how he found it interesting, that the fact that we just started this from scratch from the very, and here we are, we're still struggling and trying to put things together. We'll keep going, like you were saying, like, yeah, these aspects that we have as a community, but we have to live with that on top of obligations and responsibilities that we have within the mezcal company. So yeah, we try to also implement those things. And again, like, it doesn't stop there. I feel like something that we are looking also is somebody to help us how to stop using wood to fire the steels. The use of wood. I don't think it's necessary to use wood under the steels. Yes, we want to use it on the cooking, on the oven.
Yep.
And for that, we actually have trees. Like, we have a program which one of these kids came and suggested, what if we grow trees along the agaves? So, and he made a whole study of which it's native from the region and which will give more energy, heat, and which one grows faster. And
wow.
So we can grow it along the agaves. And so that's kind of something that we have going there. But then what if I solve something to stop using wood under the steel? So we have the sun, we use some solar panels, but there's just a few. What if we use the running water to generate electricity? I think it's not discovering something new, but it's something to implement to mezcal, and that's what I differ a little bit from the purists, because there is opinions that mezcal has to be in a certain way, but we feel like we're still making the juice the way it's supposed to be done, but we can make tweaks here and there so that.
But then it's gonna give it its own unique taste and flavor, and it's your thing, So forget the purists. They just get mad at everything.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look, you can't yell at you for what you're doing. I mean, you're doing it, man. You guys. I mean, like I said, if anyone check out any, just Google it and your videos and what you guys are doing. Just go to your website. What is it? mezcaltosba.com, right? Is that your website?
Yeah.
I mean, just that opening video on your website, I was like, oh, this is the coolest website ever. So it's pretty unique, man. So how's business been through the last few months through this pandemic? Is things been a little slow, or how's everything going on your end?
No, if anything, actually, the last year was difficult for us because for some reason we dedicated some of, and this is what happens when you're self-funded, where you use your money for, like, you prioritize. For some reason, we prioritized to rebuild the palenque. We installed 4 steels, and that took us some resources. And also we had we also make rum. We distill rum, so it's a semi-tropical area where we are.
Yeah.
So coffee, we have sugarcane. So we also launched rum brand this year.
Cool.
We took a lot of that resources, so Mezcal Tosba was hit because of that. But now, with 3-4 weeks before COVID came, the guys, our friends from Skurnik in New York, actually, they were really patient for us because they were out of product for a while. That they had just received a shipment of mezcal, so that made it to them a little before the pandemic. So we were lucky that mezcal was in already in their warehouse, and they
bought it.
and they were ready. We have really cool supporters that are believing us, and they're like always looking for mezcal tosba. So that's been really, really helpful, and we're being really lucky to have that. So, and then for a while we were out of product in California, so now finally it's gone back to California. So we're, in that sense, we're going on with the wave, and we're not getting hit by the wave. But yeah. And then if anything, we're as I was saying earlier at the beginning of the conversation, we're going back to basics, in the sense of we're growing our own food at the farm. Like, we're also just to have other things that we can just consume and just kind of navigate these rough times where like a lot of uncertainty are
Mm.
happening. And but yeah, definitely we're fine in that sense. And if anything, we need to we right now I'm about to go back as soon as we finish. I'm going back to the mountains, and in the mountains where there's no really communication there right now. So aside from COVID, because people like the villages are closed, you can't they will only get you go through that you can't stop or
You
like
can't stop.
monkey around or no, you just like
Yeah.
will just get out like
Wow.
and then yeah, and again we're lucky that the palenque is far out from the village, so we're fine there. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Got it. Got it. Has there been any, have you had a lot of cases near your areas and stuff? Has there been anything?
No, because
No.
again, like we were
Too
talking,
far away.
aside from being far away, the structure of the community, everything has to go through the assembly, so that any decisions when they decided we're gonna close, we're gonna close. And one of the reasons also is crime doesn't prevail there, because the structure of the community doesn't allow those things, and you're always like brought down to they expose, like you don't want to risk things in that sense. So that structure,
Mm.
the government in the villages have made it that it's not so yeah, it's in a lockdown, and there's no
Yeah.
cases. And but then also government recently came through and said like we can't really live like in a lockdown, so we need to be careful
Yeah.
and yeah, be careful and just and know what to do if something comes out, But
Yeah.
that's
Well,
what.
I think we got, it was good to get locked down, but I don't think this thing was as bad as we all thought it was going to be. I mean, thank God. Could have been a lot worse. I think everybody thought this was going to be a death sentence if you got it, so it turned out to be a little bit lighter than we thought. So, but I mean, you see, states like New York City, I mean, it's struggling. I mean, I talked to a couple of people the last 2 weeks and they're closing their bars and they're closing their restaurants, and estimates of maybe 40% will go under this year, which is a little scary thought for New York City to see those kind of bars and restaurants, those kind of numbers.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, who knows? Like I said, I hope we keep progressing. I know New York City's in phase 2, and we're ready to
Opening.
keep moving. So I hope we do, because I mean, money and budgets are going to start to run out even for big companies. So, I know a lot of New Yorkers are trying to go back to work, but it's still kind of a struggle. So I'm glad that you guys, been able to lock down. I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you got some product into New York. What other states are you distributed in?
So California,
Yep.
and Connecticut on the West Coast. Well, it's in Connecticut and
Okay.
yeah, most of
New York.
the East Coast surrounding areas, New Jersey,
Got it. And you're with Skurnik is your
Washington.
distributor
Yeah,
or
Scorny,
importer? Yeah.
distributor,
Yep.
and in California as well. They just came to California, and
Oh, cool.
we since we have the relationship with them, and it's really fun to work with them with Adam and with Justin Lane Briggs, who's in New York, and yeah, it's been really interesting to go to New York. I was really excited to be there. Or I got there in August, at the end of August, and I was working with Kings County
Hmm.
and learning a lot about whiskey and the aging and the barrel aging and just how they make the blends. And I was just really into it. And I was just getting the energy, just getting used to like the energy New York has. And then this came and just
Yeah. Yeah. No, New York is a very exciting town, my man.
yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And they love mezcal. That's one thing I've learned. They definitely love mezcal there.
Yeah, and yeah, and I was in that time I was just waiting for my mezcal, and then I was ready to just go and share the love and spread the gospel of mezcal. But I'm going back definitely. There's definitely a lot of friends that I made there, and really cool friends that that I definitely need to explore. It's an amazing city.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I hopefully once things get rocking and rolling, we'll have you back in New York. You and I will grab some mezcal and have a sip. And like I said, I'm hoping to get my events where we do a big tequila mezcal festival called Arte Agave.
Nice.
We have that planned for end of October. So fingers are crossed that
Yeah.
we can get that there. So maybe we can get you up there for that event because that's certainly a fun day. So cool, man. Listen, I again appreciate your time, and I know you're busy. I really appreciate your story, man. I mean, the hustle of a decade and a half putting this together. I've being in the bar industry, listened to a lot of bartenders say, "I want to open a bar, I want to start a business," and I was one of those people years ago. And you get drunk and you wake up the next day and just go back to work. And most people don't do it. So the fact that you said, "Hey, let's just do it," and you had patience and took your time and all your money and put it back into the business is really, really quite inspiring, man. And I think you, if anything, should keep telling that story because a lot of people like to see the finished product. They like to see the illegal mezcal and be like, "Whoa, that's so cool." But they didn't know John 16 years ago, when he was living in a hut and owned a little bar, and was stealing mezcal across borders and stuff like that. So, I think it's cool. I think it's cool what you're doing. And again, like I said, I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks to John as well for the introduction. And yeah, and also for any or all your listeners that they want to reach out to Mezcal Tosba, we're very open for you to visit. It's a little far from the city. It's 4 hour drive, but it's really worth it for you to experience another part of Oaxaca. Not only that, just for us to share with you, for whoever, if you want to come and visit, you have a place to stay. We've been putting this together for a while, that having like a lodging area for stay. Like we have the kitchen also to use, and we have a nearby river, so it could be a cool getaway from to unplug, and more than welcome to reach out to visit us as well. And for all the supporters too, thanks a lot. And yeah, hopefully this will pass away and it will be a nightmare, but we could get back to sharing and creating more stories with mezcal. And most of all, like, yeah, let us show you what we're doing, and more than welcome to visit too.
Very cool, man. Can we find you on Facebook, Instagram? What's your handles on those?
Yeah, so the for Instagram it's at Tosba Mezcal. The rum that we're making, it's called rum Dacaben. Dacaben means in Zapotec, well, the ones that don't listen, that don't follow, which that's how our family called us. Dacaben, like
Love
they
it.
were not like, if anything they could tell us, we wouldn't do, and we're fine. They gave up and just Dacaben, the ones that don't listen. And Tosba means only one in Zapotec as well. So yeah, at Tosba Mezcal, at Rum Dacaben, and Facebook as well, Mezcal Tosba Oaxaca, Mezcal Tosba, or the website, it's mezcaltosba.com.
Cool. Well, listen, man. Again, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And like I said, hopefully I'll see you in New York, and we'll enjoy some mezcal today.
Perfect.
All
Yeah.
right,
Thank you.
brother. Thanks again, man. I appreciate you.
Gracias.
See
Hasta
you,
luego.
everybody.
Adiós.